my last video, I talked about the black levels, particularly being the biggest reason why you shouldn't buy this TV. Now, some people have asked if maybe my local dimming is defective, so we're going to go over that now. Smack a like on this video for just total transparency you won't see anywhere else. Let's dive right in by looking at basically a contrast ratio test pattern. Anything with checkerboards will show you contrast ratio more or less. Now, there is obviously a more technical way of doing this, but an easy way that everybody can access is getting the Spears and Munsell UHD benchmarking disk and just putting up one of these test patterns. Now, for all intents and purposes, what you're obviously not going to see when they're cheating on test patterns, that's the only way I could basically describe it. Samsung knows what people use to test, and they try to create test patterns that mimic that. That is why I use real-world content so that they can't cheat their way out of it. Now, even once using this disk, you're going to see certain areas where it trips up, and I'll show you how to find those. So again, let's just keep it locked and keep moving forward. So if you see high contrasted areas where there's equally dark and black, or white and dark areas, of course you're going to see that it does have local dimming. As you can clearly see on screen, it's not a total hazy mess right now. Well, you use an inverted version of the same thing, it'll be more of the same. Doesn't matter what kind of checkerboard pattern that you throw up, it's still going to do its best to defeat all of the blooming and nasty stuff that we don't really like. When you go into a full white screen, more or less, there isn't any kind of vignetting, there isn't any kind of issue. And then usually this is the point in reviews where people go, this is a great panel, this is fantastic, I don't have any DSE, it's great for this, it's great for that, like it, buy it, affiliate link below, I may earn a commission, by the way. That's kind of the game here, I get it. It's all about, manufacturers putting these people up to say positive things so that they can get interviews, they can get free units throughout the year, which establishes something we as YouTubers call social proof. If I only had 5 subscribers, you wouldn't care what I had to say. And that's kind of the point. More or less, products, interviews, things like that establish credibility in your eyes anyway, if you're unsuspecting and don't know what to look for. Influencer marketing is a big problem, and that's why I do this job, because it's so important for us to see the difference between something that's truthful and something that's just a lie, frankly. And the fact that this TV is being treated like it has any kind of capability that's near an OLED is pretty deceptive when you look at what it offered for $2,000. So on a white screen, yeah, sure, it's uniform, it's fine. The TV does get bright. I don't have a problem with the brightness. The problem comes when stuff like this happens. Watch very carefully as we're on screens like this. When it's totally black like this, of course, all the dimming zones, all 504 kick in and it dims down. This indicates that local dimming A is not defective, and B, it is choosing when it activates. So if we go a step further and we move, you'll notice how you see a little glowing there. Don't know how well that'll pick up on camera, but there's a haze happening. Now, I also, to try to be fair to Samsung, do have my ISO down a little bit lower so that it doesn't over-exaggerate the dimming effect. So I'll raise my ISO just a little bit. We're at ISO 640 right now, just so you can maybe see the trail. And you can kind of see it like how I see it in the real world, more or less, at least if the camera is showing me what I see. Just that little glow, that tiny little glow that pops up around that little circular area there, that's really what it does. But it's when there are bright objects. Now imagine you had multiple points where it needed to illuminate something the size of that circle. Again, local dimming is a band-aid for all intents and purposes. The area around the dim area is never ever going to be lit up because it's being darkened by the local dimming. And inside the dim area, you're going to get the native contrast because it needs to use the LED lights to illuminate it. It's not self-emissive, so the pixels can't turn off. And because of this, you end up with a glow and a haze. Now the problem is, Samsung this year, as you can clearly see, I'll be nice and I'll lower it down. Let's lower it back down to let's go to 320 ISO. You can still see very strong glows around these edges here. And that's because, again, the local dimming algorithm is dimming everything down correctly. We have no problem, no defect in our panel. This isn't a mistake at all, right? I wouldn't publish it if it was a mistake. This is just genuinely the performance of this display. All 504 zones of local dimming mean nothing if you have ineffective processing and programming behind the algorithms that drive the local dimming. And this is why brands like Hisense, even though people try to give them a hard time are doing better than Samsung because they know how to program these things to avoid more of these issues. Now, when you look at a test pattern like this, it shows the whole story. It really does show local dimming that while, yes, it does work, it's not very effective. And the native contrast, again, think of it like this, okay? TVs will always come with two contrasts. It's the one without makeup and the one with makeup. Well, when you wipe the makeup away, you're going to look and you're going to see what they really look like. The delusion is removed and reality is restored, and there you go. This is what you actually look like. We don't like reality. Reality isn't fun, so makeup is invented, and here we go. We can hide how ugly we really are with makeup. And that's all local dimming really is. Now, if I've offended some people, that's not the goal. It's just an analogy to kind of help. Obviously, everybody that puts on makeup isn't ugly, so again, it's just an analogy for illustration purposes. I will say, though, we have seen many comparisons with people with and without makeup, so you know what I'm trying to say here. The point being is that it helps mask something that is generally unappealing, and that's all it is. It's a glorified masking effect for LEDs. Now, the reality is it's not very effective, it's not very strong, and again, we can see that around every single edge. We see all the blooming and glowing. So when I showed you the examples, countless examples of user interfaces being pulled up and like it being hazy and disgusting, really, a lot of people were like, there's no way Samsung looks that bad. In real time, I'm going to go and grab my remote and I'm going to open up the menu. You're going to notice all of this hazing returns because this is what it actually looks like. Now, again, we can minimize that down and the local dimming algorithm immediately kicks back in. But when you have something on the screen, you can clearly see it as clear as day. And this is where you're going to have the problem. Anytime you want to access your user interface, anytime you have multiple little logos or things like that on the screen, or you have complex geometry like, again, particle effects on a black background, a lot of the stuff I showed in the final review as tripping up the television and you saw that haziness, that was just, a lot of people were like, this is hard to believe. It doesn't look like that. I saw it in store. No way it looks like that. Understand this, when you are watching a store demo, it's designed to entice you. That's the whole purpose of marketing. They're not designed to show you what I'm showing you here. I'm an honest reviewer, so it's my job to cut through the marketing and show you what you're actually buying for that $2,000+ after taxes. And I'd like to think I'm doing it a little more effectively than some of the other guys that are trying to collect favor. The reason for this is because I'm crowd and self-funded. People join the membership and become sponsors of the channel. And what that does for us is give us unrivaled freedom to be able to say, hey, listen, this is what's happening. And so if you were wondering what my angle is, there you go. It's just laid out clear as it is. Now, that being said, if you, again, want this TV, I'm not telling you, it's the worst thing on the planet Earth, but it is pretty bad considering that for that money you can do better. And that's the whole idea here. And again, showing you that haze that does return here, no, this is not an effect of the menu. I know some people try to say, oh, the menu is just gray. That is not the effect of the menu. That is just what actually happens. And I wanted to show that off so you can see it literally snaps back in. You can watch it think in real time as the local dimming says, I think I should go back to where I belong. So that's the first step of this entire process that I wanted to show you. Now I'm going to actually put up the Spears and Munsell dimming counter to show you what it looks like as well. Now for a dramatic effect, I'm going to do this in real time. I'm going to go into the FLD zone counter. And again, we're using the Spears and Munsell UHD benchmarking disc so that you know exactly how you can replicate this on your own. You don't have to be a professional or a scientist in any way, shape, and or form to be able to use this disc. Click on this and assess what is actually happening. And you'll notice that you'll see as these little things start crawling across the screen, you're going to see hazing, you're going to see some blooming, but it's not going to be as bad as if we were to activate the menu and all that stuff comes back. Now, I really want you to pay attention to that fact. This is because it's a tiny little counter. So when you watch tests and people are showing you uniformity like this, and it's like, oh, it's deep and it's black, first thing, I'm on ISO 320. That's a camera sensitivity to light, so I'm not really letting in a whole lot of light anyway. If I were to let in more light into my camera, you would start to see it at 640 a little bit better. We could even go to 800, and then you'd start to see it the way I see it in real life, how there's all this kind of crawling around the ticker. That's the first thing to keep in mind. Not everybody you watch is going to run through this and tell you their camera setup and how they're doing all this stuff. So please, listen to this part because it's very important. Again, I can't stress the fact that when you watch this thing crawl across the screen counting zones, you're not seeing the algorithm in its true form. So again, I'm going to lower down the ISO so it's not over exaggerated. We'll go back to 320 again, and then we'll open up the menu. Even as low as ISO 320, you can still see all of the haziness, blotchiness, and gross stuff that we just don't want to see. And again, the point in all of this is to show you the light trail, to show you what I'm seeing on my end. It's not ideal and it's not fantastic stuff. And again, just so you see, it's not like an ISO trick or anything like that to make it look worse. A, we went over the settings, and B, we're showing you in real time like what this looks like. So now we're going to try to go to the demo material and run just a little bit of the footage from that. Now, I typically don't like doing this, but I have received permission from the people who make the disc, so I can do these things. Fortunately, I'm grateful that I have that permission. It was a long story as to how I got that, by the way, but again, to save you the backstory and the monologuing, this is what it looks like, right? You can see, like, when logos are on the screen, you have light trailing, or hazing, or blooming like we saw before. Now, it's not showing up as strongly on the camera at ISO 320, as I see it in the real world. I do have to open up the ISO to about 500 for you to see the throw of how much haze is actually showing through. But the reason I don't like to do that is because now there's discoloration happening here because there's more sensitivity to light, so we have to lower that back down to about 400, and where you kind of get more or less the same effect. And this balancing act is something YouTubers have to do. And so in making this content, we can choose if we want to defraud you out of your money so that we can make ourselves look better, or if we want to be upfront and just tell you how it is. Now, usually there's no money in doing that. These TVs run $2,000 just to buy the TV to compare, and then after comparing it, now we have to what? Trash it essentially by telling you how bad it is? Well, we don't really get any return off of that. The manufacturer is not going to like us for it, and there are a lot of people that don't appreciate that kind of thing. And so you end up in a weird little situation where you're honest, but what does it really buy you? It buys you no seat at the table towards influencer marketing, and at the end of the day, you feel like a loser because now you're literally losing money and you're not getting a whole lot out of it. Again, I'm the only one that does this for a reason because nobody else wants to do that. And I have to put it like that because it is going to come off very weird. Like you're the only one saying this. Oh, come on, guy. I get it, but I'm also the only one that literally is sponsored by people who watch the channel. Everybody else is sponsored by Sony, Samsung, LG, doing interviews with marketing managers and PR reps. I'm not that guy. I don't want to be that guy, right? So if we look at the Spears and Munsell UHD benchmarking disc, this is more of what I was telling you. High contrasted elements on the screen will show you an entirely different story. You'll look at this disc and be like, whoa, black levels are really good. This is the kind of demo type content that I talk about where it's high contrasted and the algorithm knows to cheat, because this is the stuff that most YouTubers are going to use to say, I don't know what that quantum guy was talking about, but the black levels are exceptional. And you'll see it in real time. If this is all I was watching, the black levels would look good. Now, you guys can go back and watch when real content was up on the screen in my last video, how problematic that becomes. And of course, you saw the menu and everything like that. For the most part, again, when you're watching stuff on the screen, I suppose if you're not really that picky and you don't really care that you paid $2,000, which literally can buy you any high quality OLED on the market right now, and you're willing to take that hit in quality because you're maybe afraid of burn-in, or you just straight up want a Samsung LED and don't care what it looks like, then by all means, this is your TV. But my point is to try to help you save money because times are tough, right? We are not trying to come off of all of our money and pay these people to be lazy. And that's really what it boils down to. It's a fight against laziness, and some stuff is just lazy. And again, you'll notice, like, as you see the sparks flying on the screen, now the haziness kind of returns. You'll pay attention to the top portion of the screen and notice it's a little bit more gray than it was before. And what I was telling you about complex geometry, particle effects, well, you're seeing it right here. As this spark starts to fly, this gets gray, this gets hazy, and it doesn't look very good. Also, in between here, more of the same. And these kinds of things add to a terrible experience when you get to firework scenes in movies, as this would most replicate firework geometry, right? And in essence, in English, all that really means, you don't even have to be an expert, it's hazy. It doesn't look good. And you paid $2,000 for it to look not so great. And that's my point here. Again, I can raise it up to ISO 640 so you can see what it really looks like on my end to the most dramatic extent. But the point is really simply put, it's just not bringing its best. And that's my thing. So hopefully by showing you all the blooming that happens on this TV and just how bad it is, you can see that high contrasted elements are a way of these TVs cheating things and kind of winning awards they don't deserve or adulation for certain things. And more importantly, you have the transparency you need to make an informed buyer's decision. That being said, if you found value in this video, smack a like on this video, and if you didn't, it's okay, turn that into a dislike. I appreciate all the engagement you guys give this channel, and I want to thank you guys so much for watching the #1 brand in honesty, and until the next video, I'll see you guys later.